Hey, what's up guys, it's Kira and welcome back to my channel. So for today's vlogmas episode I wanted to go through my medical school essentials because I get a fair few questions on what is worth buying when you're going into your first year of medical school and what is an absolute waste of money. So I hope you enjoy this video and let's just hop right in. So I am in my 5th year of medical school, and when I first found out that I got into Cardiff Uni I went onto the website and I bought every single book that was on the recommended reading list. And if you take anything away from this video, it is this: do not do that. It is a complete waste of money and medical books are so expensive, so don't do it. I think I bought in total about 10 or 12 textbooks and used probably 2 of them thoroughly. One of which was the Moore's Anatomy book, which to be honest is really wordy. Yes, the diagrams are quite good, but you do not need to know the detail that it gives you in that book in the first year. It is just completely unnecessary and very overwhelming. I remember literally spending hours on each chapter reading it thinking, I don't know what the fuck that means, and it's really overwhelming for first year especially because they bombard you with information in first year. You do not need to be overwhelming yourself and stressing yourself out further, so I don't recommend that book to be honest, and we'll get into what I recommend for anatomy anyway later on in the video. But the other book that I got was Pocock's something or other, I can't remember what it was actually called, but that was the textbook that we used for most of our tutorials in first year, so that's why I got use out of that one. But again, very wordy. Probably could have gotten more succinct summaries and information online and it would have been, again, less overwhelming to just Google it, to be honest. So my advice would be, don't buy all of the books on the reading list. Go to uni. On your first day they'll probably tell you what books you actually need, and then just go to the library and rent them because you're most likely not going to use them after first year. I don't think I've touched any of my textbooks that I bought back then since first year, so just go to the library, rent them, use them that way. In terms of essentials that I actually would recommend, let's start off with this one. This is the bread and butter of medicine, I swear to God. It's called the Oxford Handbook of Clinical Medicine and it is just so good. There's so much practical information in here and stuff you actually need to know, and it's all in really nice summaries. So it goes through the symptoms of certain conditions, the investigations to diagnose that condition, the management of the condition, and then just general information that is important to know. And it's just such a good book. In my 2nd and 3rd year particularly, I went through each chapter of this book depending on what placement I was on. So for example, when I was doing neurology, I went to this book and I literally wrote notes from this book on all of the important neurological conditions that you need to know about and also come up a lot in exams. So definitely, if you're going to get a book, get this one because it's actually useful and things that you need to know. So that one's really good for building the foundations and getting to know the basics of different conditions. But in terms of anatomy, I would actually recommend the website called teachmeanatomy. Probably not new to anybody, it's very well known. It goes through every bit of anatomy that you need to know in first year, but in a very simplified way, which is exactly what you need because again, anatomy is so overwhelming and it is not worth stressing yourself out over. So definitely use Teach Me Anatomy if you've got anatomy classes or you're doing cadaveric dissection. It's really useful. There are also lots of spin-offs of that website. Teach Me Physiology, Teach Me Surgery, Teach Me, I think there's like rheumatology, obs and gynae, that kind of stuff. Those are all really useful websites. They're all very similar, very simplified, very easy to understand, and definitely really useful in first year. The other thing that I actually only recently got that's really been helping with anatomy is this anatomy colouring book. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you're one of those people that finds colouring very therapeutic, then this is really good because it's therapeutic but you're colouring in the anatomy of the body, so you're actually learning at the same time, which I know sounds really dorky, but when it comes to medicine you realise that you just want to find ways to learn in the least stressful way, and this does exactly that. It's really good actually, and I really enjoy colouring in all of it. It goes through all of the systems, so There's also like a page on dermatomes and stuff, which if you know, you know, dermatomes are very hard to learn. So this is really, really helpful and I do recommend. When it comes to doing OSCEs, or if you're at Cardiff Uni, they call them Iskis, I highly recommend the OSCE Stop revision guide. It is so good. This was literally all I used to revise for my Iskis, and if I do say so myself, I did really well and I passed first time. I'm not trying to be big-headed, but I worked really fucking hard and this book got me through. It goes through everything in, again, just simplistic summaries, short, sweet, simple. It's the best, and it goes through how to do each examination that you need to know. It also goes through a ton of the most common things that could pop up in an Iski. So it goes through the diagnosis and management of certain conditions. For example, if you're in a rheumatology station, this book contains all the information on osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, septic arthritis, that kind of stuff. And it also goes through, like I said, all of the examinations tailored to that station, if that makes sense. An example of a station that we got given in our Iskis this year just gone was, the answer was basically septic arthritis, but firstly you had to do a knee examination, and then obviously they give you a presentation of a patient and you have to say the diagnosis of septic arthritis and go through the management. And I mean, anybody that used this book would know all of that because it's all contained in that book. I know that the brand Iski Stop also have another book where they give you scenarios so you can practice with your peers and go through different Iski stations. But I didn't actually get that. I just went through this OSCE revision guide and then I made my own stations and practiced with Harry, because I felt like the process of making up my own stations actually helped, because then you know what the examiners are thinking when you're doing the OSCE, if that makes sense. So for example, if you're making up a station for somebody else, you know exactly what answers you want them to give, and that helps in the learning process for when you're going to be on the other side of things giving the answers. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but if you're the type of person that doesn't really like to make up scenarios for yourself, then I just want to say that they also do that book, and I heard that it was very good. And the other thing that's really good for OSCEs and generally just learning examinations is Geeky Medics. Again, another one I'm sure you've heard of. It's very popular among the medical community, but they break down everything into a step-by-step guide in terms of all of the examinations, and it just makes it really easy to learn how to do a cardio exam, how to hear different murmurs, how to do a resp exam, all of that kind of stuff. It's again, very simple, and I like how they break it down into a step-by-step guide. It's not overcomplicated or anything like that. It's just very useful. So again, if you don't like having physical copies of books, that's a really good website. Then another exam that you have to pass in medical school, if you've been watching my last like 10 videos, you'll know this already. It's the PSA, which stands for the Prescribing Safety Assessment. I've been using the Pass the PSA book, which I am loving. I probably sound so dorky in this entire video, but this is really good because it goes through chapter by chapter. Each chapter is based on a section of the PSA, so it explains what they expect of you in that section and then gives you a ton of practice questions. So you basically learn by doing practice questions, and then at the end they give you a couple of mock papers, which is also really useful. Because they use practice questions as the main way to teach certain things that will come up in the PSA, they don't have all of the information that you probably need when going into the exam. So to supplement that information, I've been using mainly the BNF, which is fine because you actually get given the BNF in this exam. But for example, they don't go through all of the adverse drug reactions for certain drugs, or like the main common drugs that you're most likely going to be asked. So I made a list of those myself, and I went onto the BNF and just wrote down all of the adverse reactions, all of the safety and monitoring things that they recommend when you prescribe them, all of that kind of stuff. So it's not hugely informational, but it's very good for practicing and very good for getting a grasp on what the actual PSA will be like. So I do really recommend that. And then the last couple things that I would highly recommend if you're going into medical school, if you've been watching my videos for the last like 3 years, you'll know that I use PastMed as my main way of revising for progress tests. It's basically just a huge question bank, and my aim is to go through about 50 questions a day to get myself used to the SBA style questions and to prepare for progress tests. Like I said, it's really good. The questions are hard and challenging, which is exactly what you need when going into medical school. I think the first year is free, and then you do have to pay a yearly subscription fee, but I've got to say it is 100% worth it. It has gotten me through all of my exams thus far, so that's probably the one thing that I would recommend over anything else. If you do invest, don't get down on yourself if you end up with like 30% in your questions or 40% or whatever is typically bad for you, because they are really hard. Medicine is really hard, and it took me a very long time to be nicer to myself and just give myself some grace and realise that medicine is not the same as GCSEs and A-levels. Like GCSE years, I was going through all of my exams, getting 90, 95, 98% in exams, and going from that to medical school where the pass mark is 50% and you think, oh, that's fine, I'm gonna aim for like 80, 90s, and then you realise that it's actually really fucking hard to get just 50%. So my point is, don't be too hard on yourself. Go through the practice questions on PastMed. They are really, really helpful, and soon you will get that average up and up and up, but I'm just warning you, they will start right down in the gutter. It's a fact at this point. But other than that, those were all of my essentials that I actually use in medical school. If you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe for more. I hope you're enjoying Vlogmas thus far, and I can't wait to continue uploading. And yeah, I will see you in my next Vlogmas episode. Bye guys!